Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel. Today, James and I are going to show you how to brew a rather special modern best bitter.
So we've got a kettle on the table with some liquor in it heating up, which means it's brew day.
Obviously, a kettle on the table, it means we're going to do brew in the bag. But this recipe we're going to brew today, James, I'm super excited about.
As am I, Martin. And the reason that I'm so excited about this recipe is because if you're a long-time subscriber to the channel, you will have seen a video that we put out last autumn in partnership with our friends from Charles Faram's, where we went and visited one of their hop farms that is running part of their hop development program, and we got to experience actually some new emerging experimental British hops.
I mean, that was a fantastic day, James, with Charles Faram's. Getting to that secret location with all of those new hops which they're developing that we're going to be hopefully brewing with in a few years' time.
It was quite a grounding experience as well, though, because the conversation you had with Will Rogers, who's the technical director at Charles Faram, who is also in charge of the hop development program that Charles Faram's run here in the UK, it was quite grounding because understanding the plight of the British hop market right now is really important, not just to home brewers, but brewers professionally, farmers, agriculture more broadly, because it's a very historic agricultural process to grow hops here in the UK. We've been brewing beer in this country for generations, and hops are at the heart of that. However, changes in climate, changes in drinking habits, changes in preferences of the beer that we like has all led to a decline in hop growing here, along with some of the other social and economic stuff that's going on at the moment. But seeing the work that's going into developing new and exciting varieties, but also varieties that are resistant to disease, they're going to be more tolerant of, drought conditions and heavy rainfall. All of that stuff takes a huge amount of effort, but it's really important work because we need varieties that are going to be sustainable for the farmers to grow and exciting for the brewers to brew with.
Yeah, I mean, to have Will on hand, such a privilege. That guy, he seriously knows his hops, and he's so passionate about it. You could see that, but just the way he was kind of talking about all this work that goes on to bring a hop that we take for granted to the market.
Yeah, I know, but that brings us right back to what we're going to be doing today. Now, we're going to be brewing a beer that is actually something we've brewed before, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But we're going to be using one of the hops that we got the opportunity to see in their small little micro kiln that was being harvested and dried and going out for some tests.
Yeah, I mean, we stood in the field with the rows of these plants next to us. They managed to harvest like 15 kilos of that hop. Of that 15 kilos, they then produced 3 kilos of pellets.
Yeah.
And I got a kilo of those.
I know, well done, Martin, well done. We did get a kilo. Now, we haven't been in a position where we can release that as a sellable product because it's only a kilo. But what we did was we worked with Charles Faram to actually send out part of that kilo out to some people that we know would be passionate to brew with it, and also give us some feedback on how that hop fares in the beers that they're going to be using.
Yeah, because it's really important. Farams want to get feedback. They want to know how people brew with it, where they add it, how the beer tastes. They want to get that feedback back so they know, those 2 rows of hop plants, do they go further forward so that in 3 to 5 years' time, we can all be brewing with them.
Which is incredibly exciting. We've done this before where we've had a small amount of an experimental hop when Harlequin first burst onto the scene, and it grew and grew, and now it's a really popular British variety for homebrewers, but also commercially, it's being used a lot now. So we're really excited to be part of this trial with Charles Faram's, and also to see how those that have brewed with it find this hop. Now, the experimental variety we're going to be brewing with today is called CF302. It doesn't even have a name yet. It's that experimental. And we're really excited because, as we said, Martin and I got to see it in the kiln drying. We were able to crack some of the cones open, smell them, and it was incredibly exciting and promising.
It was absolutely amazing. You know, to find this British hop that was just packed full of juicy flavors and aromas, you know, it was very kind of stone fruity-esque and just massive amounts of fruit in it. So I cannot wait to brew with this today.
Neither can I. So the beer we're going to be brewing today is a best bitter. Now, it's a style that Martin and I absolutely adore. It was kind of like both of ours beer origin story, drinking lots and lots of pints of lovely locally produced best bitters from where we used to live growing up, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've brewed like these traditional English beers, and best bitter is one of those that really stands out for me. Last week, Rob and I had the privilege of being again invited by Charles Faram to go to 5 Points and like, sniff more experimental hops, which hopefully we'll see in another 3 to 5 years time coming through. But you know, whilst there, absolutely reminded me of one of my favourite best bitters, 5 Points Best.
Absolutely, 5 Points Best is a wonderful beer, and we are lucky enough to have the recipe kit available for 5 Points Best off the back of the project that Johnny and Brad did on the Craft Beer channel during lockdown to brew that beer and actually be able to serve it on cask at home. So we're going to be using the grain build today for that recipe because we know it's wonderful. It's really layered, and we'll go into detail about it a bit more in a minute, but it's layered, it's modern, it's malty, it's wonderful for the style, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think some of the other learnings that we've taken over the last few videos, we can also bring those in. So if you think back to the St. Austell video we did, all about using whirlpool and aroma additions, I think we can use that knowledge with this exciting new hop and make it very hop forward best bitter.
I'm looking forward to that. And we're also going to be doing something that we learnt from our partnership with Good Chemistry when we talk about the yeast we're going to be using today. So Good Chemistry's house yeast is WHC saturated. They use it in so many beers, and it is a New England style juicy yeast, but it's got its roots and its heritage in traditional British beers.
Yeah, because its history is London Ale 3. You know, it's a traditional English ale yeast. It's that yeast that went on to be the Boddington strain. You know, it gives you lots of flavour, but it also helps with that malt and gives you a little bit of sweetness in there.
Yeah, and therefore we're going to be using that yeast today. We're going to be fermenting a fairly neutral temperature because we don't want to take it too high and have it produce too many fruity esters, because we want to be able to see the hops shine through, but the residual body it will leave in the beer will make it really, really drinkable and unctuous and kind of wanting to go back for more and more and more.
My mouth's watering already. I cannot wait to taste this beer.
Neither can I.
So James, talk me through the brewing process, because you've written out what we're going to do today.
Yes, so I've used Brewfather to plan the recipe, which is a piece of software that I'm really starting to fall in love with. We are going to be looking to produce 20 litres of finished beer. We're aiming for an original gravity of 1041 and a final gravity of 1010, okay? We've got, it's only 3.75 kilos of total grain in the beer, which is made up predominantly of Simpson's low colour Maris Otter, a little bit of amber malt, a little bit of crystal medium, and then a little bit of wheat malt as well. We're going to be using Flex for our bittering addition.
Okay, how much of that are you putting in?
Literally 1 gram.
Right.
Okay, because we're going to pick up more IBUs with our whirlpool process. So Flex provides a really clean, neutral bitterness that I think is going to be exactly what we want for this beer, because we want to be able to really distinguish the aroma and the flavour and the bitterness of the CF302 that we're going to be adding later on. Now onto the mash profile, we're going to be heating our strike water up to 72 degrees.
Yep.
Now we're doing brew in the bag today, so we're
full grain.
full
batch.
Yeah, full volume of water,
Okay.
1 kettle. We've got a pump attached to our kettle that we're going to be able to do some recirculation with, but we're going to be mashing at 68, okay, for 60 minutes. Now, after that, we're then going to move on to our boil. It's a 60-minute boil. Like I said, we're going to use Flex for the bittering addition at 60 minutes. Then we're going to add a 30-gram charge of CF302 at 10 minutes. And then we're going to come on to what you were talking about, which is how we're going to introduce aroma and flavour from the hops.
Yeah.
So we're going to cool down to 80 for our first 30-minute hop stand / whirlpool. We will have some recirculation going at this point as well. And we're going to be adding 70 grams of CF302 at that point. And then, naturally, the kettle will have cooled down a little bit further during that process, during that 30 minutes. When we get to the 30-minute mark, you may be thinking, well, that's enough. Actually, what we learned at St Austell and the way that they introduce aroma from their hops is they cycle the wort then through their hop aroma vessel.
Yeah.
And you were able to come up with a method to do that on the G40. And we're going to take some of that into this. So we're going to add another 100 grams after 30 minutes. And we're going to whirlpool again for another 30 minutes before we then transfer, cool all the way and transfer into our fermenter.
Well, I think that's exciting, you know, to see if we can replicate that on a one-pot system.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to it as well. Fermentation, like I said, we're going to keep it fairly low, sort of between 18 and 20 for the fermentation period, just to allow the yeast to do its job, but not produce too much in the way of fruity esters. And then at the end of it, I'm really hopeful that we're going to have an absolutely fantastic beer that we're going to be able to drink.
Can't wait. I guess all we're going to do now is heat up our strike water and get brewing.
Yeah, we need to do our water additions as well. Let's not forget that. That's it, Martin. We've hit the end of our brew day. You've pitched the yeast. How did you find brew day?
It was great. Really enjoyed brewing with that kettle. You know, it just reminds me how easy it is to make beer at home. A single vessel on your hob at home, anyone can make beer.
I know. The addition of the pump as well to recirculate and whirlpool makes a massive difference as well, I find.
It's a nice to have. It's not essential. You could build up to that if you bought a kettle and started brewing at home.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say, those hops, when we added them into the whirlpool, they were fantastic, weren't they? And we had a little rub and sniff, and they were just, really, really interested. For me, I got loads of tropical fruit, but also blended in with like blackcurrant and that kind of stuff. So really interested to see how it shows up in the final beer.
Yeah, I got like peach and stone fruit, and then kind of like a herbally kind of earthiness to them, a little bit of spice on there, but yeah, really looking forward to see how this beer tastes. All that's left to do now, James, is let this ferment. So James, it's been a couple of weeks since we brewed that awesome beer with CF302.
Yeah, I know.
Can't wait to taste it.
No,
but
me neither, Martin, and I've got a keg under the table here.
I know, I can't wait. But before we get tucked into it, just tell me a little bit about how did it ferment?
Well, for the most part, absolute dream. Put it into the Apollo, let it do its thing, kept the temperature nice and low, about 18 degrees throughout the entirety of fermentation, because as I said previously, we didn't want the WHC saturated to be driving too much in the way of like fruity esters during the fermentation process. So yeah, really pleased with how that went. The only thing that I would say is that actually we tested the gravity a couple of times and it attenuated really low. Like, right. I think it finished at 1006, 1007, so actually far lower than we were aiming for initially, because we were aiming to finish at about 1010. But I'm still sure and confident that the beer will have turned out really well.
I guess the only thing that could maybe have impacted on that would be, mash temp maybe?
Yeah, perhaps, but also WHC saturated does attenuate quite high, so I think it's just a bit of a learning curve on how we use that in more traditional styles.
So come on, James, without a delay, let's crack on and get some beer in the glass.
Okay, let me get the tap line out. Right, where's your glass? Now, we added some Browsol for findings and some findings adjuncts as well, just so that I could make sure that this was as bright as it could possibly be.
Mate, that's great considering you've literally just taken the keg out of the fridge and moved it to here. I love Bressel. It's such an easy product to use to get nice, crisp, clean beer.
Absolutely. Just got to make sure it's nice and distributed well across the top of the wort. Right, first off, let's have a look at that. I mean, look at how bright that is, and the colour's fantastic.
It's got that beautiful 5 points glow about it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. But Martin, we're not here to talk about the colour. You know, we know that it's a great grist. It's all about the hops. So I think we should go in and have a bit of a sniff.
I do like the way that head's holding though.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Ooh.
What are you getting on the aroma?
Citrus, kind of mandarin, nectarine. It's very floral.
Yeah, sweet, citrusy, right? Yeah, loads of punchy aroma there. Actually, I think that your technique from the St. Austell recipe, where we did the aroma kind of second whirlpool aroma vessel kind of experiment, has really paid off there on the aroma. Right, should we go in for a sip?
Yeah, I can't
Cheers.
wait. Cheers.
Wow.
It's definitely that sweet orange you can taste.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, mandarin.
I mean, even though it's attenuated out as far as you said it has, there's still plenty of taste and feel to it.
Yeah, and actually the body's not too bad at all.
It's not thin beer.
No, bitterness is just right as well. Flex did its job. It's not added anything in terms of flavour, just that nice underpinning of bitterness.
That is really drinkable. I can imagine it's definitely sitting in the garden, smashing pint after pint of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that's a win, Martin. The nuance of the hop aroma and flavour is excellent. What it isn't is brand new. You know, it's not unknown territory in terms of flavours. What it is doing is driving tons and tons and tons of citrus, orange, sweetness in the aroma and the flavour.
But not a sickly sweetness.
No, but I've not experienced that level with a British hop before. For me, it's definitely leaning far more towards some of the kind of fruitier, juicier hops that we've experienced from elsewhere in the world, rather than something that's grown here in the UK. You know, Harlequin as a hop is fantastic, but this is, as a new variety to be grown here in the UK, completely different again to Harlequin.
Yeah, Harlequin's much more like fruit salad. It's kind of a real punch on the taste, but it's really packed full of flavour. This is just much more, I don't know how you describe it. It's just kind of,
it's got like a straight down the line profile.
Yeah, it's easy to define what it is. Yeah, it's very easy. It's not a jumble of loads of fruits thrown together.
Yeah,
it's one very clean, beautiful hop.
Yeah. Now, actually, I'm gonna put my neck on the line here a little bit. Having tried a hop recently, it's really reminded me of that hop. And do you know what that hop is? Willamette.
Oh, okay.
The work we did with St. Austell for the tribute recipe meant that we drank quite a lot of tribute. So therefore, we've become quite accustomed to how Willamette shows up in a beer. And for me, it's got some similar characteristics.
Yeah, that kind of citrusy sweetness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good shout out. I mean, what this also shows, this beer and this brew, it shows that, you know, you can take a recipe that you know and love, take the malt bill, switch the hops out, do something completely different. You could just keep brewing that same grist over and over with single hops.
Yeah.
Doing some amazing experiments.
Yep. Wow, Martin, I think that is an absolute win. And for anybody that is out there thinking about what's going on with the British hop industry right now, this is testimony to the fact that there is some really exciting developments taking place. And I can't wait to see if this hop makes it through to being a commercial crop, and actually then being something that we can, first of all, have a name for, but then secondly, we can continue to get over the next few years and see how it makes a stamp on the British hop industry here and the beers that are being brewed with ingredients that are sourced directly from our country.
The only thing I'd add, James, is I'm a little bit sad. It's going to be at least 3 to 5 years before we can use this on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. I'd love to throw this in like a juicy, hazy pale.
Yeah, me too.
Such a banging beer and such a great hop.
I'd even like to put it into a West Coast.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Centennial in there as well. I think it would play really nicely with that.
Yeah, me too. Right, I think there's only one other thing to do. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to top my glass up because...
Don't drink too much, because I think I might be taking that home, because I think this is going to be great to put for a handful.
Well, cheers again, Martin. What a privilege it is to be able to get our hands on these hops, having seen them being grown in the field, being harvested, being able to brew with them, and now being able to enjoy them in the glass is an absolute privilege. We would strongly encourage any of you out there that sees experimental hops available, grab a pack, see what you can do with them, because all the feedback that we can pass on through to the hop suppliers means that there's more and more opportunity for them to find the next commercial crop to be grown here in the UK.
I think all that's left to say is thank you very much, Will, from Charles Faram's, and to John Stringer for getting us these hops and letting us brew with them.
Now make sure, if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you've also subscribed to our channel, you've hit the bell for notifications so you can keep up to date with all of the projects and exciting stuff we're doing here at Malt Miller HQ. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Cheers.
Cheers.